So, what do you think?
It looks solid. Great turnout.
Agreed. What's next?
Review and next
If you've
steps.
ever believed in second chances or fate, this story might just confirm what you've always suspected. Before we dive in, if you're enjoying this kind of heartfelt content, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more stories that will touch your heart and remind you of life's unexpected beauty. The gymnasium buzzed with the typical chaos of a middle school talent show. Parents clutching programs, teachers herding excited performers, and the unmistakable scent of floor polish and anxiety hanging in the air. Among the crowd stood Daniel Foster, a 38-year-old single father who had mastered the art of looking put together while feeling anything but. His daughter Lily was performing tonight, a piano piece she'd practiced relentlessly for weeks, and nothing could have kept him away, not even the mountain of work emails still awaiting responses. Daniel checked his watch and scanned the rows of folding chairs. He'd arrived early to secure a good seat, camera charged and ready in his pocket. Lily deserved to have someone cheering her on from the front row. It had been just the two of them since she was 7, when cancer took her mother after a brutal 18-month battle that had left them both emotionally drained but somehow stronger together. "Excuse me, is this seat taken?" The voice came from behind him, familiar in a way that made the hair on his arm stand up before his mind could place it. Daniel turned, the polite refusal dying on his lips as he found himself staring into eyes he'd once known better than his own. "Eliza?" The name escaped as barely more than a whisper. 17 years had passed since he'd last seen her, since they'd said goodbye in that coffee shop near campus during their senior year of college. 17 years since he'd watched her walk away to pursue her dreams in Europe while he stayed behind to take the safe route, the practical job his parents had always pushed him toward. She looked different, of course she did, but somehow exactly the same. The same slight tilt of her head when she was surprised, the same constellation of freckles across her nose that he'd once memorized like star charts. "Daniel." Her voice held the same melodic quality he remembered from late-night phone calls and early-morning whispers. "I thought that might be you." The principal's voice crackled over the speakers, announcing the start of the show in 5 minutes, but Daniel barely registered the words. The world had narrowed to this impossible moment, this collision of past and present that left him dizzy with questions. "What are you doing here?" he managed, aware of how blunt the question sounded only after it had left his mouth. Eliza smiled, that same smile that had once been the first thing he thought about in the morning and the last thing he pictured before sleep. "My nephew is performing tonight. Saxophone solo." She glanced around the filling gymnasium. "I'm visiting my sister for a few weeks. I live in Munich now, but I try to come back when I can." A pause. "What about you?" "My daughter," Daniel said, the words bringing him back to the present reality. "Lily. She's playing piano tonight." Something flickered in Eliza's eyes. "You have a daughter? That's wonderful." Before Daniel could explain the whole complicated story of his life since they'd parted ways, the lights dimmed. "Would you like to sit?" he asked, gesturing to the empty seat beside him, the one he'd been saving with his jacket for no particular reason until now. As Eliza settled beside him, Daniel felt the strange convergence of timelines, who he had been, who he had become, and perhaps most unsettlingly, who he might have been if different choices had been made all those years ago. The talent show began, but Daniel's mind was elsewhere, ricocheting between memories and the present moment. He remembered the day he'd met Eliza during freshman orientation, both of them lost and looking for the same building. He remembered their first kiss under the ancient oak tree by the library, and how she'd tasted like cinnamon gum and possibility. He remembered the plans they'd made, the future they'd imagined, her pursuing photography across Europe, him joining her after graduation. Plans that had dissolved when his father's heart attack had called him home, when responsibility and fear had kept him there, when the safe choice had seemed like the only choice. By the time he'd realized his mistake, she was gone, her occasional postcards eventually tapering to nothing as they both built separate lives. The sound of applause jolted Daniel back to the present. He'd missed the first 2 performances entirely. Eliza was clapping politely beside him, and he joined in belatedly, hoping his distraction wasn't obvious. "Your daughter's up next," Eliza whispered, pointing to the program. Daniel straightened, suddenly alert. How had he allowed himself to become so distracted? This was Lily's night. He watched as his daughter walked onto the stage, her dark hair pulled back in a neat bun, wearing the blue dress they'd picked out together. At 12, she already carried herself with a quiet confidence that reminded him painfully of her mother. Lily settled at the piano, took a deep breath, and began to play. The piece, Debussy's Clair de Lune, filled the gymnasium, transforming the mundane space into something ethereal. Daniel felt his chest tighten with pride and a strange sense of melancholy. His daughter was growing up, becoming her own person with talents and dreams that would one day take her away from him. It was the natural order of things, but it left an ache nonetheless. When Lily finished, the crowd erupted in applause. Daniel was on his feet before he realized it, clapping until his hands hurt. Beside him, Eliza was standing too, her expression one of genuine appreciation. "She's incredible," Eliza said as they sat back down. "She reminds me of you, actually." That same look of total concentration. Daniel smiled, surprised and touched by the observation. "She gets her musical talent from her mother," he said quietly. "Sarah played beautifully." "Sarah," Eliza repeated. "Your wife?" "Yes." Daniel hesitated, then added, "She passed away 5 years ago. Cancer." Eliza's hand found his arm, a gentle pressure of sympathy. "I'm so sorry, Daniel. I had no idea." The simple human contact, the first in so long that wasn't from his daughter or a business handshake, sent an electric current through him. "It's been just Lily and me since then. We manage." He attempted a smile. "Some days better than others." The conversation paused as the next performer took the stage, a gangly boy with a saxophone that seemed too large for his frame. "That's my nephew, Theo," Eliza whispered. "My sister's youngest." Daniel watched the boy, Eliza's family, an extension of her, as he launched into a surprisingly competent rendition of a jazz standard. Another piece of information slotted into place: Eliza had a sister who lived locally. Had she been here all this time, just at the periphery of his life? When the talent show ended, parents and children began to mill about, congratulating performers and gathering belongings. Daniel stood awkwardly, suddenly unsure of protocol. Was this goodbye again? A brief, strange intersection of their lives before they returned to their separate orbits? "Dad!" Lily's voice cut through his thoughts as she pushed through the crowd toward him, her face flushed with excitement. "Did you see? I didn't mess up the middle section at all." Daniel pulled her into a hug, lifting her slightly off the ground despite her protests that she was too old for that. "You were perfect, Lil. Absolutely perfect." When he set her down, Lily's gaze moved curiously to Eliza, who was standing slightly apart, giving them space. "Lily, this is..." Daniel paused, unsure how to introduce this woman who had once been the center of his world. "This is an old friend of mine, Eliza Mercer." "Eliza, this is my daughter, Lily." "It's nice to meet you," Lily said with the polite formality she reserved for adults. "Did you go to college with my dad?" Eliza smiled. "I did. And I just saw you play. You're incredibly talented." Lily beamed at the praise. "Thanks. I've been practicing that piece for months." A woman's voice called Eliza's name, and she turned to wave at a woman who looked remarkably like her, standing with the saxophone player and 2 other children. "That's my sister," Eliza explained. "I should go congratulate Theo." She hesitated, then reached into her purse, extracting a business card. "I'm in town for 2 weeks. Maybe we could catch up properly? If you'd like to, that is." Daniel accepted the card, his fingers brushing against hers in the exchange. "I'd like that," he said, surprised by his own certainty. As Eliza walked away to join her family, Lily looked up at her father with undisguised curiosity. "Who is she really, Dad?" Daniel tucked the card carefully into his wallet. "A very important person from a long time ago." "Was she your girlfriend?" Lily asked with the direct insight that sometimes made Daniel wonder if 12 was the new 20. "Once," he admitted. "A lifetime ago." Lily considered this, then nodded as if making a decision. "You should call her. You looked happy when you were talking to her." Daniel placed his arm around his daughter's shoulders as they walked toward the exit. "Did I?" "Yep." Lily was matter-of-fact. "You don't always look happy, Dad. Even when you think I don't notice." The observation landed like a gentle rebuke. Had he been so transparent? He'd tried so hard to be strong for Lily, to create a stable, happy home despite their loss. But children saw everything, especially the things you tried to hide. That night, after Lily had gone to bed, Daniel sat at the kitchen table, Eliza's business card in front of him. Eliza Mercer, senior photojournalist, it read, with contact information for both her Munich office and her international cell number. She'd done it, pursued the dream they'd once talked about together. While he'd built a predictable life as an architectural project manager, she'd been capturing the world through her lens. He pulled out his phone, then set it down again. What would he even say after all this time? "Sorry I didn't follow you. Sorry I chose security over passion. Sorry I built a life with someone else." But that wasn't fair, to Sarah, to himself, or to the beautiful life they'd created together, however brief it had been. He didn't regret loving Sarah, didn't regret having Lily. How could he explain that it was possible to cherish the life he'd lived while still wondering about the road not taken? Daniel finally texted a simple message: "It was good seeing you tonight. Would you like to meet for coffee while you're in town?" Daniel. He set the phone down and went to check on Lily, tucking the blanket around her sleeping form and brushing a strand of hair from her face. Whatever happened, or didn't happen, with Eliza, this was his priority. This sleeping girl who had her mother's artistic talent and his stubborn chin. Nothing would change that. His phone buzzed as he returned to the kitchen. "Coffee sounds perfect. Tomorrow? The little roaster on Elm at 10? Eliza." Daniel replied with a simple confirmation, then sat staring at the exchange, feeling like a teenager again. It was just coffee, just two old friends catching up. Yet something about it felt monumental, as if he was standing at another of life's crossroads. The next morning, after dropping Lily at school, Daniel found himself arriving at the Little Roaster 15 minutes early. The coffee shop was new, it hadn't existed when he and Eliza were in college, but it had the same artsy, comfortable vibe as the places they used to frequent. He chose a table near the window and ordered a coffee, trying to calm his inexplicable nerves. What did he have to be nervous about? They were both adults, both with established lives. This wasn't a date, it was a conversation. Eliza arrived exactly on time, wearing a simple blue dress and carrying a leather messenger bag emblazoned with the logo of an international news magazine. When she spotted him, her face lit up with a smile that transported Daniel back 2 decades. "I was half afraid you might not show," she said as she sat down across from him. "I was afraid of the same thing," he admitted. They ordered. She still took her coffee with almond milk, a detail he was surprised he remembered, and fell into the awkward small talk of people trying to bridge a 17-year gap. She asked about his job, he asked about her travels. She shared stories about living in Germany, he talked about the challenges and rewards of raising Lily. But beneath the superficial exchange lay deeper currents, questions unasked and histories unshared. It wasn't until their cups were nearly empty that Eliza finally broached the subject they'd been dancing around. "I looked for you, you know," she said quietly. "After I left. I came back to visit my parents that Christmas, and I went by your old apartment, but you'd moved. No one seemed to know where." Daniel stared into his coffee cup. I moved back home after my dad's heart attack. Took a job at a local firm to be near my parents. It was supposed to be temporary, but life happened. Eliza finished for him. Yes. He looked up at her. I should have tried harder to find you, to explain. I was going to join you that summer, like we'd planned. But then Dad got sick, and Mom needed help, and the job became permanent, and I let the current take me. Eliza nodded, understanding in her eyes. We were so young, Daniel. Maybe it wasn't our time then. The implication hung in the air between them. Was it their time now? Daniel wasn't sure he was ready to consider that question. Tell me about Sarah, Eliza said gently. If you want to, that is. The request surprised him, but Daniel found himself wanting to share this part of his life with her. We met at work. She was an interior designer who consulted on our projects. She was brilliant, creative, stubborn. He smiled at the memories. We dated for a year, got married, and had Lily within the next 2 years. It was a good life, ordinary in the best ways. And then? Eliza prompted. And then she started getting headaches. Severe ones. The diagnosis came when Lily was 6, glioblastoma. The medical term still felt foreign on his tongue. We fought it for 18 months, tried everything, but... He shrugged, the gesture inadequate for the magnitude of the loss. I'm so sorry, Eliza said, her hand reaching across the table to cover his. Lily seems like an amazing kid. You've done a wonderful job with her. She makes it easy. Most days. Daniel smiled. She's got this old soul quality, always has. Sometimes I think she's raising me instead of the other way around. They ordered more coffee, and the conversation shifted to Eliza's life. She told him about the assignments she'd covered, refugee crises, environmental disasters, cultural celebrations. She showed him some of her photographs on her phone, images so powerful they made his chest ache. What about you? Daniel asked after a while. Did you ever marry? Eliza shook her head. Came close a couple of times. There was a journalist in Paris, then a professor in Berlin. But my lifestyle isn't exactly conducive to long-term relationships. I'm away more than I'm home. Do you regret that? She considered the question. Sometimes. On cold nights in unfamiliar places. But then I get to witness these extraordinary human moments through my camera, and I remember why I chose this life. She paused. What about you? Any regrets? Not about the important things, Daniel said honestly. Not about Sarah, not about Lily. But sometimes I wonder if I've played it too safe since then. If I've stopped really living and just started existing. The conversation continued, weaving between past and present, between what was and what might have been. Before they realized it, 2 hours had passed. I should go, Daniel said reluctantly, checking his watch. I have a client meeting at 1. And I promised to take my niece and nephews to the Science Museum this afternoon, Eliza said. She hesitated. I'd like to see you again before I leave. Both of you, if Lily would be comfortable with that.